Captain Robertson with Big Water Fishing. You may have seen some of our podcasts, some of our videos. Hopefully you watched the giant smallmouth podcast, third largest smallmouth ever documented all time, biggest Great Lakes, biggest north of the Mason-Dixon line. So if you haven't seen that, maybe catch up on that little podcast there. Producer dude, I'm sure will throw in the link somewhere up in here. But here's the deal. We took this one step farther. So in order to be a record, the fish had to be kept on ice according to Ontario. That's what they were required. So we had no choice in that. So we got Travis Harman from the DNR, the fisheries, as well as Gregg Gallagher, my buddy who caught the big fish. And we got them together at the fisheries building to do a dissection of that fish. So they want to learn as much as humanly possible. Age, sex, all kinds of good stuff, and then collect some things that they'll keep for future use. So dig in with us here as we go to the Sandusky Fisheries Building and kind of dig in deep and learn what we can from this fish.
So what we did is a workup of what we would call a workup for this fish. So we collected all the data that we possibly can get out of this fish. So we opened up the brain case and pulled out otoliths, which are they're ear bones in the fish that we can use to age the fish. And then we can use that age to combine with the length and the weight and look at growth rates of the fish. So there it is, that's one otolith right there.
What is that? Explain that.
So this is we call it an otolith, but it's a fish's ear bone. So they use it for like balance and sensing where they are or how they're moving around. But they're really important for us for fisheries scientists because we can take this otolith and so bass grow just like a tree grows. They grow really fast in the wintertime or in the summertime, and then they grow slow in the wintertime. They lay down a ring just like trees lay down rings every year. And the otoliths are really thin. As you can see, I mean, these are you can imagine these are much smaller on a smaller fish, but we can actually put these under a scope and count the number of rings in there. And that will give us how old the fish is in years. And then we can pair that up with how long the fish is or how heavy the fish is. And we can start to look at growth over time when we have multiple fish at multiple ages. And we can also build population models with knowing numbers of fish at age each year.
So what we did, we took the otolith that Zach extracted. The focus is in the middle, which everything radiates out from. So these are kind of your two halves. I crack the otolith in the middle, polish it, set it in there upright, and you're looking down on it, which would be concentric rings growing out, like if you were to saw the tree in half, and looking down, and then each line that's laid down is the period of time in which it's taking up the least amount of minerals from the water, so periods of less activity or less feeding. So every year it lays those down. Due to the fact this was a fish caught in the fall, we don't count the edge because it's in the fall. In the spring, because all fish have a January 1 birthday, so no matter when you spawned, we use that as the birthday to have the age classes. So yeah, so in the spring you count the edge, in the fall you don't count the edge.
So this would have been 2005.
So yeah, well let me look at this a little bit more. I'm thinking spring because it's after the first of the year. So yeah, it's actually just a 16-year-old. Because yeah, fall capture, you would not count that edge.
This is our length and weight graph with smallmouth in the gold color here. And you can see I had to, so this is an average smallmouth growth rate.
Where that point fell compared to what we've seen. It's absolutely a normal Lake Erie fish.
It's average.
Like we don't see them that big, but it fell right on the line for, you know, it's not extremely fat. It wasn't 10 pounds because it was full of eggs, or, you know, it was a...
You had an empty stomach for the most part, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not deformed at all or anything like that. It's just, it's a normal Lake Erie fish for one that's 10 pounds.
We opened up the belly of the fish, and we were able to identify it as a female just by looking at the visual appearance of the gonads. It was a little bit tough because of in the mounting or the molding process, they had injected some molded material in there, but it does look like a female. And we did open up the stomach, but the stomach didn't have anything any prey items in there. So we would say the stomach was empty.
And normally would there be eggs in there starting to form at this time?
Typically we would see eggs, and we did not see that with this fish. Granted, the state of the fish, having been frozen and thawed a couple times, made it a little bit difficult, but just based on the size, the shape, and the texture of the gonads, that's why we called it a female.
And originally we thought it might be a male because it wasn't very big and broad?
Yes, originally there was a potential that it was a male just because it didn't appear to be a really pregnant female or anything like that, like you might see at that time of year, but yeah.
So I've seen all the questions online about did he release it? He should have released it, and Gregg has mentioned numerous times he really did want to release it, get some good pictures, keep fishing. They were having a good time fishing. But, you know, thanks to Ross and others that were on the water at the time, they recognized this was a truly unique fish, that it's a potential record fish, and not only that, but potentially one of the few 10-pound certified fish. None have been caught in the Great Lakes until now, only a handful in other places. So the Ontario process to certify a provincial record fish did dictate that the fish be kept frozen until the process was completed. So it was brought here alive. We were fortunate to see it alive and see it come right out of the live well, but just the nature of the process dictated that it had to be kept. And, Gregg mentioned more than once he would have liked to even released it after we sort of certified it, but it just wasn't possible.
And then because of the circumstances of things going on, you took it one step farther?
Yeah, with the course, we had a situation where there were tournament weights that were in question, and lead weights were found in those fish along with fillets and other things. So we worked with a local veterinarian to get good x-rays of the fish. That way the fish wasn't cut open prior to having a mold made. We wanted to make sure the fish was still intact to have a nice mold made for replicas. And the x-ray was very clear. There was nothing that we wouldn't have expected to be in that fish. It was an empty stomach and a clear body cavity, and we got a really neat x-ray of a unique smallmouth bass.
Gregg, are you selling waypoints?
Not yet. I'm just really appreciative that you let my wife and I get to see this process, and you've been really professional along the way. And thanks for us for expediting this. It couldn't have gone more smoothly for the most part. A little hectic trying to get it certified, the weight, but once we got that and came here, and really appreciative.
The only thing that didn't go well was having to stop fishing, right?
Yes.